Welcome to PD Insider. I'm Craig Miller of PLI, and this program is part of a series about professional development in the law. The training needs of today's top law firms are changing faster than ever. These needs are driven by technological innovation, global economics, and client expectations for value, efficiency, and understanding. Law firm leaders are recognizing that what got us here may not keep us here when it comes to future success. And if they fail to respond to these forces, they risk falling behind their competitors. Joining me today is Caitlin Vaughn. Caitlin is the Managing Director of Talent Development at Goodwin Proctor in Boston and directs the firm's 18-person learning and development team. The focus of today's conversation is how PDs are addressing these shifts in training to keep their firms at the top. Welcome, Caitlin. It's great to have you at PLI today.
Thank you, Craig, for having me.
When we talk about a shift in the approach to the training and development of lawyers, usually we're focusing on young attorneys. Is that still the case?
So I think it's a truth universally acknowledged that we're going to see profound shifts across the board in terms of the way that legal work is done, in terms of the way that law firms are structured, in terms of the business model, and in terms of what clients are looking for. And I think it's short-sighted for us to think that that change is only going to impact our young lawyers, or even that it's only going to impact our young lawyers in the short term. And I think one of the things that we're thinking a lot about is how that cascades up the organization, including to our partners.
So it really sounds like you're talking about a much more profound shift. And where is it going to be felt then as you look across the organization?
I think it's going to be felt up and down the levels of seniority, but I think one of the areas that it's really important for us to be focusing on is our partners, because our partners being able to shift within the business model and growing new skill sets that we think are necessary in order for them to be effective in the role in the new normal also has a cascade effect down the rest of the organization. And it's really important for us to get that multiplier effect by thinking about partner development proactively and not waiting for those changes to come to us.
Well, that's really interesting. And obviously it has its challenges because for the professional staff to deal with the partners of the firm can present certain types of challenges. But thinking about what does the next gen partner skill set, the future ready partner, what does that look like?
Well, I think it fits into this discussion that many of us are having around what we think the future of legal practice is going to look like. And the bottom line is that as technology enablement becomes more and more present and ubiquitous in legal practice, we know that it's not going to be enough to be a technical legal expert. And frankly, it probably hasn't been enough to be a technical legal expert in a long time. But what we think are going to be really important skill sets are going to be the people skills and business advisory skills and the ability to act as a strategic advisor to your clients on questions for their business, not just their legal questions.
I said it's interesting because in some ways, what that sounds like is the things that generative AI won't be able to do, and that technology really can't replace. It can help. It can enable, but it can't really step into that role.
Absolutely. When you're thinking about the problems that keep our clients up at night, what you want is someone who is going to earn the trust and confidence of their clients by being a strategic advisor who really understands their business. And so one of the things that I think that we are going to see is an increased emphasis on a couple of skill sets that come out of that. One is really understanding at a deep level business strategy. Many of our lawyers, myself included, went to law school and not business school because we thought, I don't know, that's not necessarily something that I'm interested in. But the truth of the matter is that understanding not only our clients' business strategy, but the ecosystems in which those clients operate is going to be crucial for all of our attorneys, but especially our partners, to be able to operate successfully. And we also think that it's really important for them to understand how to tackle business problems. So it's not just that you understand what the problems are, it's that you have skill sets like design thinking and agile project management and business strategy, so that you're really thinking about not only what the problem is, but how to partner with your client to offer a solution.
Right. So really understanding your client's business is a key. And then also the collaborative skills so that they want to work with, because all of the firms at the top, provide excellent client service and they know the law.
Right.
So the question becomes, how do you differentiate yourself from your competitors and how do you make these relationships enduring?
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit more about design thinking and its role in what skills a partner needs.
Absolutely. So I'll give an example of how we're doing this at Goodwin. At Goodwin, we have a program called the Advanced Leadership Challenge. It's a program aimed at our senior non-equity partners, those who've been nominated by their business units or practice areas because they're viewed as, the future of the firm and people who we want to really be investing in. And we teach them a design thinking skill set, actually using the firm as the internal client, which I think is a really great way to think about it because it achieves two aims. On the one hand, it teaches them a design thinking skill set. We give them a problem statement of a topic that the management committee of Goodwin has identified as, something that's really keeping them up at night, like a profound challenge that we are thinking about within the firm. And then we ask those partners to work with subject matter experts, to do their own research, and to engage in a design thinking sprint utilizing a couple of different design thinking modalities. And when we do that, we ask them to come back and say, here's what we think as a group, a good example of how we do this would be. So some topics that we've covered over the years in that space, how do we make hybrid work and hybrid work relationships more effective during the pandemic? How do we ensure that we are making lawyer life sustainable? Because we recognize that there's a real generational shift in the market, and we need to be able to talk about work-life fit and work-life balance within the context of excellent client service and being there for our clients. We've also looked at topics like, how do we, Goodwin is an industry-focused organization. We organize ourselves by industry. How do we make sure that we are doing a better job of creating that immersive industry experience that is so important for our clients? By asking our partners to engage in that type of thinking and practicing it for the firm as its own client, we're building that skill set so that they can go to their clients and use that same approach to collaborate with our clients to offer solutions and actually to be teachers to our clients of that skill set.
Well, first of all, that sounds like not just training, but sort of a little bit of healthy competition that can also result in some immediate benefits to the organization.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to structure something.
It has been very fun to see the camaraderie, but also the competition that emerges when you have, 5 teams of 5 partners each times 2 sets of teams. It's a really great program. So yeah.
And when you talk about design thinking, it always seems to me that that's very correlated to communication skills, because empathetic communication is a key part of the design thinking sort of rubric. Could you talk about maybe some of the shifts that are taking place in communication training in the current environment? And especially with the heavy use of data, there's so much data, and communicating the value and the meaning of data can also be a challenge for partners and others.
Absolutely. So if we think about the way that our senior lawyers have traditionally practiced, they have experience, and that in and of itself is qualitative data. They have the law, which is quantitative and qualitative data. But oftentimes they have been saying, well, based on my experience, this is what I think market looks like, or this is how the law is interpreted by this particular court, or this is, where we think that this other firm is going to come out, or this client is going to come out on a particular term within a deal, because their experience tells them that that is the likely outcome. And most of the time they're right? I mean, we don't make, partners who don't have that level of experience to be able to say, my educated guess is that the next step is going to be X, or we're going to get a response of Y. But what we haven't traditionally asked our partners to do, which is rapidly becoming an important part of our business, is using actual data sets. So I'll give an example. Goodwin has some of the highest volume of M&A deals anywhere in the AmLaw 100, anywhere in the global 200. When we think about the number of deal terms that come across our desks as a mid-market firm, we are doing a huge number of M&A deals every year. That is an incredibly rich data set for us to be looking at and to say, it's not an educated guess, it's an educated guess layered on top of, here are what the last 200 deals in this range, in this industry, featuring these features looked like. But that's a very different way of communicating than using your trusted business advisor qualitative hat. And honestly, it's an area that we're really looking at. But one of the things that I think we need our partners to get even more comfortable with is the ability to integrate quantitative data into the way that they're counseling their clients in a way that feels authentic and that unlocks the insights that quantitative data provides. Because nobody wants to stare at a spreadsheet and not have anyone say why they think it's important. It's really about using the data to tell a story, and that story has to be, in line with the circumstances in which the client finds themselves, to connect that to the work that we're actually trying to do or the questions we're trying to answer.
Right, so the art of storytelling actually becomes very important, particularly as we have these complex data sets that we're trying to explain, we're trying to extract value from, and then we're trying to deliver to our client in a meaningful sort of way.
Absolutely. And there's a real partnership here between the partners and the professional staff in a firm, because oftentimes it's the professional staff who are the keepers of the data, doing the data analytics. And so it's really important, speaking of skill sets, that ability to translate from the quantitative side to the qualitative side, and to be someone who can be an effective translator in that space and who can partner with members of the professional staff in order to do that effectively for your clients. And frankly, to teach some of the professional staff. So I know we're talking mostly about partner development, but to bring a wide-ranging cross-disciplinary team to bear when you're serving your client, and for the partner to be the quarterback of that cross-disciplinary team is also a correlative skill set there. So
that's interesting. You also touched on one of the skills that that partners need to develop. It has to do with really understanding not just their client's business, but the law firm's own business, the law firm as a business. And with so many changes going on in terms of client relationships and frankly, the data that clients have that they can use in negotiation and discussion with the law firm, how do you get them to think about that?
Absolutely. So, I think that, again, the traditional law firm model, which was built very much on a billable hour model, is rapidly changing. We're already seeing this with multiple different spaces, multiple different types of matters. And I think that that's going to continue. And I think that most firms are making an educated bet on the fact that that disruption in the billing model is going to continue. Thinking about then how we deliver client value effectively in a model in which we are talking about many different types of client service models, whether that's subscriptions or fixed fees or success fees or a mix of different models, alternative fee arrangements of all kinds. It's really important for the partners to be able to understand how that affects things like staffing and project management and what timekeepers should be doing and understanding what the ideal mix looks like. Harkening back to our previous answer, data will be very important for them because as we gather that data, it helps us make more informed choices on things like staffing. But one of the things that I think that creates is an opportunity for us to get our partners even more sophisticated in the way that they are thinking about delivering client value. And it also makes it incumbent upon our partners to cascade down best practices around project management so that the firms are making prudent financial decisions within each matter, and then the firms and the clients are partnering together to figure out structures for the matters that allow them to maximize value on both sides.
Right, exactly, because as the clients demand efficiencies and the clients demand value, the law firm also needs to derive value from the relationship, and it takes a much, I'll say, sharper pencil sometimes to figure out how to do that.
Absolutely. And that ties to the use of technology in projects. It's important for our partners not only to understand how best to deploy our people, but it's also important for us to deploy other resources. And sometimes those resources can be technology. Sometimes those resources can be non-timekeepers, like bringing in a subject matter expert in data who may not necessarily bill out in the same way that our timekeepers do. It's really thinking holistically about how you bring all of the firm's resources to bear to serve your clients in the most effective and efficient way.
Right, so this is really taking sort of matter management to a whole new level, and making sure that they have the competencies, I guess, to deal with that.
Absolutely. And the reality is, we have a fantastic client value team at Goodwin, and the head of that team, Chris Grant, is, one of our closest collaborators, because what we've realized is no matter how big your strategic pricing and client value team can be, there's no way that team is going to be able to serve every partner on every matter. And so we have to be able to teach the partners to fish on the matters where they're not necessarily going to be able to leverage the full, bespoke version of the client value journey. So we work really closely with that team and have a partner development track within our matter management training series in order to ensure that our partners are thinking about matter management across the board, from the inception of the matter all the way through the end of the matter, because to be honest, especially in this moment where these models are rapidly changing, that need for after action review and thinking about what went well and what we can do better is a core part of the learning, not only for the partner, but for the team and for the firm as a whole, as we think about how to make sure that we are creating mutually beneficial arrangements in that space.
Well, it's great. That sounds like a very innovative approach to something that's sort of, the kind of thing that lawyers have to do, not necessarily what they went to law school to figure out how to do. But talking about changes in the current environment, obviously we have to talk about AI and deployment of AI successfully in an organization like yours. We think of younger lawyers as the early adopters of the newer technologies, but at the end of the day, it's the partners who shoulder the responsibility in the partnership, so that they have to know exactly what the tolerance for an individual client is for the use of AI on any particular matter. So how do you address those questions with them? These are things that might not have been happening, prior to ChatGPT rocking the world, 3 years ago.
Absolutely. I think that it's been very interesting to live through the sea change that is technology. I can only imagine that it feels similar to the way that being a lawyer changed when email was introduced, right? We went from having a model where you sent drafts, either FedExes or faxes back and forth, and there was turnaround time between drafts of a document to you can click a button and the other side is going to get it within the next 3 minutes, and then they can turn it around same day. The rate of change is just so incredible that when we think back to this time 10 years from now, I think we're going to, just be able to catch our breath and really understand it in retrospect. I think that partner piece, the partner piece of Gen AI is so crucial. And there are sort of 3 different components to it. There's being able to understand your client's risk appetite and interest in Gen AI. And we have clients who run the gamut. Everyone from do not use AI on our matters. You are signing an engagement letter that says you will not use AI, to we expect you to use AI and you need to detail how you're using AI in our matters. So again, this gets back to that partner communication skill set. You need to be able to be facile with understanding the client's desire for the use of AI. And you also need to be able to understand the firm's guardrails on how we use AI responsibly and make sure that those 2 things jibe, because we don't want to make promises to clients that go counter to what the firm is comfortable with. And obviously there's a lot of thought that goes into that, from the general counsel's office, from our knowledge and innovation teams, from our digital and technology teams. And the tech stack is constantly evolving because we're trying new products and we're seeing what works and we're iterating. So it's really important to be able to have that, that constantly evolving understanding situated in understanding the client's role and strategy around AI.
Right.
And I think that there are two other components to this. There's understanding the technology itself, because you cannot meaningfully supervise more junior attorneys on a technology or on anything that you don't understand. In particular, because in the spaces where our clients let us use Gen AI, we may be using Gen AI to generate initial drafts. It's very important for our senior lawyers to be trained specifically on what to look for in terms of where Gen AI tends to fall down, whether that's substantive issues, like we've all read those horrible cases of firms being fined because they, had cases that don't exist in a brief that they filed with the court. But also making sure that they're catching those things that we all subconsciously now go, oh, that was using Gen AI, wasn't it? Like, we don't want the work product that we're creating to look like Gen AI created it. We want it to sound like a Goodwin voice or like a law firm voice. And then the third piece of this that I think is really important is, understanding how they as partners need to encourage the change down the chain, right? So they need to understand the tech stack and where the firm's policies and strategy is going in order to be able to talk to their teams meaningfully and be change agents themselves. And that's an area where, I think that there are really strong early adopters, and then there are partners who are probably still very uncomfortable with it. And the way that we're approaching that is a very bespoke man-to-man coverage model, in part because we know that our partners respond best when they feel like they are having their individual questions answered, and they don't necessarily want to be in a big group asking those questions and sort of exposing their level of comfort, whether that's a high level of comfort or a low level of comfort. So that's been a really effective model as part of the program that we've launched recently called Goodwin Propel, which is our Gen AI adoption strategy. It's really more than adoption. It's about behavioral change. And so ultimately the measure of all of that Gen AI strategy, whether it's partners or junior associates, is how much are we actually changing people's day-to-day behavior, and how are they incorporating the technology meaningfully into the workflows that they already engage in.
Well, that's interesting. You articulated some of the challenges that you actually do face in terms of partner training and elevating their skill sets in some new ways. But I would also think that not only internally, but it'd be part of the partner's responsibility, and they have to be made, comfortable and enabled to do this, is to articulate the firm's AI strategy to their clients, or to prospective clients.
Yes.
Because it's typical that the clients want to know, what are you thinking in terms of the use of AI? First of all, because everyone has questions about it, and they do seek your guidance. Right. So by understanding what you're thinking will help them actually clarify their thinking on the subject.
Absolutely. And a lot of our clients who have legal departments are still trying to figure out where the legal department fits into their organization's overall AI strategy. So there's a little bit of a meta aspect to that, because in being able to effectively articulate Goodwin's AI strategy and how we approach AI, we're also able to act as strategic business advisors to our clients, whether those be GCs or founders or C-suite executives across the board, to think about their own approaches to Gen AI and to think about the questions that, we as lawyers are thinking about from a risk management perspective and also from a transformation perspective. Those are also important skill sets for us because, again, you need to be able to articulate that strategy internally. You need to be able to articulate that strategy externally, and you need to have the working knowledge that connects the strategy to the actual practice.
Yeah, well, with all of these examples, it sounds like something more than just a skill set development. It sounds like really sort of a shift in the mindset of partners and others in the firm. I mean, so where does that show up in all of this?
I mean, I think it starts with leadership. So, our chair, Anthony McCusker, who is absolutely fantastic, calls this the owner's mindset, right? It's about thinking about all of the choices that we make every day, whether you are a member of the professional staff, a junior associate, all the way up to a senior partner who is actually an owner, that everyone needs to think about the firm with an owner's mindset. What is going to be the thing that puts the firm in the best position to execute and to be successful now and in the future? And I think that is something that is really important. The traditional business model of law firms is you pay out the profits at the end of the fiscal year, right? And all of the residual profits are distributed. That's not how most corporations think about it. When you think about how startups work, or even how more mature corporations work, they reinvest their profits into the business. And I think that there is both a mindset shift in really thinking about how do we invest for the long term. And that is also a mindset shift in terms of thinking about how you invest in yourself for the long term. Because these are going to be skill sets that we're not going to fully realize what we need until we need them. But as with most professional development journeys, you need to start before you need the skill set.
Well, if there's one thing I think that we're all learning is that the investment in technology will be ongoing. Yeah. It's not like it stops. It's not like you budget it this year and you're good for the next 5 years. Things just come at us too quickly, and the changes come, are too significant to not participate.
And that is a really important skill set and mindset shift that I think we're seeing with our partners as well. If you ask people who study professional services about the psychological profile of people who go into things like law, they tend to be risk averse. They tend to be, they want things that are sort of traditional. They tend to think about what success looks like, and they want to understand what success looks like before they start on a journey. And one of the mindset shifts that I think that we're going to see with lawyers is we're going to have to get all of our lawyers more comfortable with ambiguity, with change, and that requires its own mindset and skill set shift. But it's an area where our partners really lead the way. And so it's something that I'm seeing at a leadership level, our leaders really emphasizing the importance of not just being willing to do it the way that it needs to be done now, but to get comfortable with the idea that we are all going to be experimenting, and that we're on this journey with our clients, not, behind closed doors and only presenting the perfect to the clients once we've articulated it. It really is about getting comfortable with that level of sort of change and ambiguity, and being able to partner with our clients in that moment so that we can move forward together.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant point. And I think, the long-term view, the lack of closed-ended answers to fixed questions, it's over. You can't just read black letter law or do the research and expect that to really solve the problem in a long-term sort of way.
Right.
So yeah, lawyers and ambiguity sometimes are the best companions. Well, thank you. Thank you for your insights. That was great.
My pleasure, Craig, and really always a pleasure to be here with PLI.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'd like to thank my guest, Caitlin Vaughn of Goodwin, for sharing her insights. We look forward to you joining us for another edition of PLI's PD Insider. This is Craig Miller. Thank you, be well, and do great things.